Hi, welcome to One Word Today. I'm Sophie, your pilot into the universe of Chinese. We are going to continue our exploration, our journey in learning one new Chinese expression a day. Or not exactly learning, like reviewing or unpacking or see them again, see them with a fresh perspective. Things that I took for granted, like I came across a lot of concepts. That's Chinese translation of English concepts. Like whoever came up with the concepts first owns that origin of the concept, right? And then other cultures have to adapt and translate that into their own culture. So I was trying to explain to try to see why they were translated in this way. So yesterday we came across sociology. Concept of sociology basically in Chinese is society, 社会, and 学 is study of the society. And what society is made of is this god of land, which is kind of the goal of the society is to live under the god of land peacefully, productively, probably. And then 会 is how you're going to coexist as a group of people living together under the same god of land. And so this 会, in contemporary Chinese, it means meeting. And I hardly put a second thought to what meeting is. And over here is this gathering of this triangle structure with the speaking, like verbalizing your intent. And that is how you're going to survive as a society together to live under the rule of the god of the land. So that becomes a 社会, that becomes the concept somebody put together to capture what society means. It means why and how you coexist as a society. Okay, today we continue with the 学, in 学而思, 学而思. Even if it's only 3 characters, actually, it came from an ancient teaching. It actually teaches you how to learn things, which is you need to learn it, but at the same time, you need to think for yourself. So in that sense, ancient Chinese already embedded in the language, in this phrase, to teach later generations of Chinese to really have a critical thinking. Like you may learn isms from all kinds of framings of this world, all kinds of explanations, theories, previous generations of scholarly studies. But your job is not only learn what they say, what's already recorded out there as common shared knowledge in your society, but also to think. And when Chinese place 学 and 思, these 2 action words next to each other, the later word kind of had the final say. So yes, you learn, but that's the first step. And the goal or the final act of that is to think. So thinking is really emphasized here. Let's unpack. 学, we have children, big-headed, 2 arms, pick me up posture. That's a very vivid depiction of children. And then we have this big arch, that's a sheltered space. And then we have this crisscross stacking up. I read it in 2 ways. One is to signify the link, the network of the knowledge. And the second explanation is this stacking up process is a representation of the intricate patterns of the roofing structure in East Asia architecture. And that roofing almost make it look like a temple. It's with this intricate roofs. And that is because in back then, there was no public education. And education was held or sustained or funded by the collective efforts from the members of one big community, which normally by blood ties. So it's families with the same last name, they gather together and pitch in, right? And to build this temples of knowledge together. So this intricate rooftop was kind of to distinguish this is a place really with some intricate roofs. That means it's well-built, well-funded place. And then this 3 finger hand symbol reaching down from top down, almost like adult hand. When we say like Earth Day, a lot of time we see this hand, right, holding a little plant thing in middle. So it's a similar way in Chinese culture, use this three-finger hand symbol reaching top down, kind of handle something with care, almost like this poster in contemporary visual representation. So this adult hand reaching down in this temple of knowledge to pass knowledge cross-generationally to the young. And that's the whole environment and the whole setting about this cross-generational from adult hand to this baby picture under the temple of knowledge. That's the definition of 学, of learning. And of course, in today's world, we emphasize not only school learning, but self-study as well. And so here is specifically this private schooling image. And of course, this concept, learn, the study, will adapt according to the new era. When we say online learning, we just add online over there, but it's still considered as learning. And this learning have this root in this private family school, cross-generational information parsing. Okay, we came across a few times. It's a connector word between concepts. So in this case, I translated as and, but actually it can be both and or but, depends on the two meaning next to are they on the same continuation of thinking, of thoughts, or they are opposing each other. So if there's a twist if there's a surprise there, then it will be more likely be but. But I mean, over here, we can translate both and but, right? Because you learn, that's one thing, but at the same time, you need to think as well. So we can see they either aligned on the same lane or they're actually opposing. Like learn is one thing. Think is really a different function or requirement of you. Okay, let's see. This is not the sky. Okay, this is the tip of the nose, zoom up view. And then this, what we call Chinese call it 人中, is this particular little dent on above the middle of your upper lip. So over there, it's depicted over here. Okay. And then this is a beard style, kind of a goatee, right? Beard style of ancient knowledgeable man, like a man who has his time to really comb their hair into a certain style. And so ancient time scholars often preserved in the drawings to have this beard style. Okay, so on their chin and also on the above the lip and then kind of a draping down. So that gives them instantly gray beard, wise, old and wise authority figure, ancient Asian male look. Okay, so that's the look back then. And then how come it becomes a connector word? I would imagine it's comparable to the English concept of on the one hand, on the other hand. So in English, we use this connection of contact or this continuation of train of thoughts by this hand gesture. So kind of hold the attention of the listener of, on the one hand, so you listen to point A, and there's a point B coming up later. So your attention is sustained until you listen to the point B, right? Chinese use to kind of in the middle. So we don't say on the one hand first to wrap you in to know A, B coming up, but we use as a connector of 学 or any kind of concept. So A, B, right? So this concept. Then when we say then in your, the receiver's end, we will regard it as a connecting. So these two are not just individual things that we throw up, but we want to view the two simultaneously together in one phrase so that the coexistence of the two concepts in one phrase make meaning. Kind of like what I'm doing here. I'm not explaining to individual characters. I'm explaining, unpacking individuals as well as how they coexist, how they interact. And in this A and B structure, this and served by the beer. So Chinese way, instead of saying one hand, the other hand, this is one beer, the other beer. That's my corresponding how I can understand that with English context. It's just this side of the beer, that side of the beer, and then this is the connector of the two. So this is to preserve your understanding of a completion of the context of this phrase by connect the word over there, right? So you have to listen to the second part, what's after er, and you have to kind of going back to what's before er, and then you put the two together to think about it. Okay, so think, this concept come from a spool of thread. I mean, I can view it as a spool of thread, actually. If you ever look at the thread spool, it looks just like that. And then with a spin thing on the top, right? But according to scholars, this is a super simplification of the head image. We came across the head icon before with the hairs on the top to show, oh, that's a cut off head actually. And apparently this is a head that still stayed on because it's still thinking, it's still service function. So this is the head, I guess. The sphere kind of showing you the shape of your head, right? And then I'm not sure about that antenna on the top. I'm not sure, like culturally, Chinese actually regard we each have a hidden antenna in our head that will have to receive message somewhat through the air, like verbal communication by your community members. They are saying things to you, and you have this antenna receive it, and then within go into your head. I'm not sure if that's the intention, but the whole thing, this big circle with a cross in the middle with this antenna thing, whole thing is the head. Okay, one version. My second version is a spool of thread. Probably the head works better here. The bottom is the heart symbol. We saw that a lot before. It's a chamber. It has an incoming tube, outgoing tube. So heart is a pump, right? So it has to have an income, outgoing. And then the third line is the blood line that power the heart itself. So it has to have at least the 3 tubes connected to it. So that's the anatomy of the heart. So we have the heart and the head together, collaboratively think. Okay, according to scholars, this explains the ancient view of how Chinese regard how we function, how we think, and the thinking function, which probably involves like remembering things, right? Memorizing and then kind of deducing, inferencing, and making connections between things, kind of conjuring up some concepts, right? All that thinking function in ancient Chinese understanding is a collaboration between the head and the heart. And I think even in contemporary, I don't know, psychology or contemporary understanding of the brain technology, right? Science of the brain, they also, like neurology, right? Neurology, that's what I've come. They also talk about like different regions of the brain, right? And for ancient culture, that before this technology to look at, to examine the brain, a lot of times people attribute a thinking function, part of the thinking function, to the heart, because probably you feel something when you have that that emotional build up. Probably your heart is kind of feeling it as well. That's why you probably feel that heart is part of the thinking function. At least it's an emotional processing function, right? Even if it's just a pump, but this pump can can feel, can detect emotions going through it. And in the combination of heart and head, I think Chinese language creators do capture this part, this two hemispheres of our brain, which is emotional and rational, right? At least we have that basic distinction. So the heart represents emotional processing, and the head represents the rational part of it. I think that's a good foresight for the Chinese language. So 学而思 means you learn something, but eventually you have to think for yourself or on your own. So whatever generations of wisdom passed on to you, take it always with a grain of salt. Like basically, like you're your own cook of your understanding of the world. You have to salt it or whatever, flavor it to make the knowledge internalize and make you have your own spin on it. So that's 学而思. And when I'm searching this thinking function, of course, this famous sculpture actually created in 1880. 1880 is 100. It's 240, almost 250 years ago. Gosh, almost a quarter millennial time ago. French sculptor Rodin came up with this capturing of human thinking function like that. Of course, it's a man thinking, very masculine man, but it emphasizes not on all that muscles and the human anatomy here. What defines us is not everything else, but this thinking face, this thinking posture. That's what defines us, as we are actually a thinking being. So Chinese define humans as two-legged standing being, right? But over here, it's like we are a thinking being. And especially in 2023, when ChatGPT became the hottest topic of the year, it really makes humans ourselves to think how we define ourselves again when ChatGPT seems to be able to talk better, think better, be more knowledgeable than us. Then who are us, right? So I guess the answer is still like we are the thinking being. Okay, so there you go. Oh, one incident before I go. Okay, when I grew up, there was a famous IT company brand called Lianxiang, which is legend, which is later Lenovo, known to the Western world in 2023 now, Lenovo brand. Their initial commercial in China was about using this sculpture and have there's a 380 degree of rotation. I mean, the commercials back then were really rudimentary, but somehow that commercial stood out from the rest of the more like entertaining type of commercials, because they put this Western sculpture about thinking, and their tagline for that is 世界失去联想 no 人类失去联想世界将会怎样 It put a question mark about humans when we are deprived of our imagination, what the world would be like. I mean, isn't that inspiring line, right? So somebody came up with that, and I resonate with our generation of Chinese that in school system back then, at least, China just opening up to the world, right? And this IT company trying to sell computers, trying to get the whole China society get onto not exactly internet. It's a pre-internet age. It's about computer age, trying to equip companies or schools, government with computers. So big tidal wave of information age, initial hitting China's shore, and that's the commercial lines. And that is the moment that kind of defining, like we are defined by our imagination, like the world progress by humans have this function to think, to imagine, to come up with new things, right? And that kind of captured the zeitgeist of that era, in the West as well as in China, to encourage people to think out of the box, and therefore buy their computers. Therefore, we have later Lenovo come to the scene. Okay, so that's 学而思. Cash into the currency of thinking about one word a day with Sophie today.